Welcome back to another project. In this project, we are going to create a random code generator. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have a glassy design, a glass morphism design with the title and a code with the author. And each time we click on this button, we get a new code. And while we are waiting for the result, we see the updating and loading effect inside the website. So we're going to use an API to get these random codes. And also we're going to learn how to create these loading effects using try and catch methods and asynchronous functions. And also we're going to learn how to make these glassy designs using CSS. In the next section, we're going to start with the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. All right, let's start our project. As always, I put the final version of the project as our reference here to compare our project with the final version. The first things we need to do is to start the project by creating an HTML file. So I would like to use VS Code for our project. So I opened my Visual Studio Code. And here inside the Visual Studio Code, we close the Get Started tab. And in the file menu, we click on the open folder. We want to create a folder and create our project inside that folder. I want to create the project inside the desktop. So I choose desktop and I create a new folder and I call the folder the name of our project, which is random code generator. After pressing the enter, the folder is created. Now we can click on the select folder to select the folder. Here we can close the Get Started tab again. And on the left side in the Explorer section, as you can see, we have the folder name. So we are creating everything inside this folder. And we can click here on this button to create a new file. And we call it index.html. And we press enter. Now we have our HTML file on the right side. It is completely empty, but we can use an exclamation mark like this to create an HTML boilerplate. So when you just write down an exclamation mark and click on the auto suggestion, the first auto suggestion, you get an HTML boilerplate like this. Let me explain you real quick this boilerplate. So the first line is doc type, which tells the browser which version of HTML we are writing our code. And for HTML5, we just need to write HTML here as an attribute. Then we have an HTML tag, which is covering both of the head and the body tag. Inside the HTML opening tag here, we have a lang attribute, which defines the language of the page and tells the browser which language the page is written in. And in our case, we just have English. After that, we have the head tag, which includes the metadata tag and also the title tag. The first metadata tag defines the characteristics and language characteristics of the page. And for the charset attribute, we have chosen by default UTF-8, which nearly contains all the characters and symbols. And the users won't have any problem seeing the content inside our page. The next metadata tag is related to the compatibility. And it's just for the users who are using Internet Explorer. It tells these users, the Internet Explorer, to use the recent rendering engine, which is Edge. So Microsoft is telling the users to use this one, the Edge, not the user, the browser of the users who are using Internet Explorer, to use the Edge search engine, so which is the latest one. The next metadata tag is the viewport metadata tag, which tells the browser to set the width to the device's screen's width. For example, if you have a mobile screen, the width would be smaller than when you're using the laptop or desktop screen. So it's just adjust the width of the browser automatically based on the device's width. The next part of this metadata tag is the initial zoom level of the browser, which by default is 100%. The next tag is the title tag, which just set the title of the page. let me show you the title inside the browser. So in order to see this page in this index.html inside the browser, you can open it from the folder that we have created, or we can use an extension called live server. So here on the bottom, you can click on the live server, and this is going to open the page inside the browser, and the title is document, as you can see here. And this is going to be automatically updated based on the changes inside the index.html. So let me close the the Explorer section on the left side so we have more space. So instead of document, I want to just write down the name of the project, which is random quote generator. Now you can see the title has been changed to random quote generator. And whatever we want to create inside the browser, we have to add inside the body section. And if you look at the final version, inside the body section, let me show you by drawing. So if you look at here, we have the body, and then we have a container here. I'm showing you with the red color. After the container, we have a title, then we have the code section, the name of the author, and finally we have the button here. So first we need to add a container. Here, this is the container. So we're going to add a div with a class of container so we can style it later. Then we have a h1 tag for this title. Then we have an h2 tag, and for this one, we have a paragraph for the author, and finally we have a button. And for these things here, codes like a code left and code right, we're going to use a website called Font Awesome to get these icons. So later I'm going to show you how to get these icons as well. All right, inside the body section, we have a div with a class of container. So we just write down dot container. This is going to create a div with a class of container for us. And inside this div, we're going to have an h1 tag saying random quote generator. So if you look at our website, and if you refresh the page, we see the random quote generator here. And also we can add a class here that later we can style it. So we can add a class and we just call it heading. All right. So after this h1 tag, we're going to have an h2 tag with a class of quote. And inside this h2 tag, we're going to have these icons first, and then we have our text in the middle. As I mentioned before, we're going to use a website called Font Awesome to get these icons, the left and right quote icon. So if you search here, Font Awesome, if you search on Google, Font Awesome, and if you click on the website called fontawesome.com, and here on the right, on the top in the menu, you just click on icons. In this section, you can search for any icons you want. So inside the search bar, I search for quote. And if you press enter, the website is going to show you different types of quotes. The quotes I want to use is the left and right quote. So this is the left quote. If you click on it, you can see that by using an I tag with a class of fa solid, fa quote left, you can have this icon in your website. So you need to just copy this. I think if you click on it, you're going to copy it and you just paste it inside this H2. Okay. So inside the website, you cannot see this icon because we haven't added the Font Awesome CDN to our website yet. So if you go to Google and search for Font Awesome -CDN, there is a website called cdnjs.com. And if you go to cdnjs.com/libraries and you choose the Font Awesome, they show you the CDN. For example, this is the CDN. They have many CDNs, but I just recommend you to use the first one. CDN is just the file that the user is going to download to see these classes. All right. But they don't need to have the file with all with all these classes. They download the necessary one because the CDN is located in different countries, so they can have a very fast access to this classes, and they can download this file in a fast way. So you don't need to have the file. You just need to allow the users to download these things from these websites. So you just need to click on the copy link tag in the middle. Let me zoom you to see. So you click on the copy link tag, and you just go to your head section inside the HTML file, and after the title tag, you paste the link tag. Now, if you look at your website, you can see that icon, the left icon. All right, so we have the left one, and inside, after that, we want to have a span. A span is just like an empty things, and here we just want to say quote, and this span has an ID of quote because we want to change this code dynamically later using JavaScript. So we should have a reference to target this place. So we have added an ID with the name of quote, so we can target it later using JavaScript. And after the span, we're going to have the right one. So if you go to the Font Awesome website, we close this one and we click on the right, quote right, and we click here to copy the code. We can paste it here, and we have the right quote like this. So if you look at the final version, after the quote, we have the author name. So author name is after this h2 tag, and this is just a paragraph. It's a paragraph with the class of author and ID of author as well, because we want to style it using CSS, and also we want to change it dynamically using JavaScript later targeting this ID. And inside this paragraph, we just want to say we want to add this symbol, and after the symbol we want to say just author for now, hard-coded for styling, and later we're going to have this one dynamically like the one in final version. So each time you get a different author and different quotes. All right, so finish with this part. Next, we want to add a button. So we want to add a button with a class of btn for styling, and with the ID of btn as well. And inside it, we want to just say get a quote like this. So we have finished and done with the HTML part of the project. In the next section, we're going to use CSS to style the project like the one in the final version. So see the next section for the CSS part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of our project. In this section, we're going to style the project using CSS. By looking at the final version, we see that we have a container with a different background color, and the body has a gradient color from blue to green, and this container has a box shadow, and this button has a hovering effect with the extra shadow at the bottom and different background color. So we're going to create such a glassy design or new morphism, and the first things we need to do is to create a CSS file inside the folder that we have created in the last section. So we go back to Visual Studio Code and we open the Explorer section using Ctrl-B or Ctrl-Shift-E, and here on the left side we just right click and click on new file to create a new file, and we call it a style.css. Before using this file, we need to add a link to this file within the HTML file. So the link tag is going to be inside the head tag. It can be before or after the link tag for the Font Awesome website. So we can just at the end of the head tag, we just add a link, and we just write and we click on this one, the third auto suggestion, the one with the CSS. If you click on this is going to create a link with the relationship between the HTML file and the CSS file, and the href, which is the destination of the link, would be a style.css. And as both files are located at the same directory, we don't need to add any extra address for this. Just the name of the file would be enough. So now we can use the CSS in our project. So let's close the Explorer section using Ctrl-B, and we go back to style.css, we bring our website to the right side so we can style it and see the changes in real time. The first things I would like to do is to style the body section. So we just write body, we open a set of curly braces, and the first things I want to do, I want to remove the default margin, and we set it to be 0. So let's refresh, and you see that there is no margin anymore inside the website. In order to bring everything to the center, we need to change the display to flex. Sorry, should be display flex. And we need to set the height of the screen to 100% of the viewport height, or we can just set it the min height to be 100% of the viewport height, which is the 100% of the screen size. So, and now we can bring everything to the center vertically. Without this line of code, we cannot bring anything to the center because there is no dimension for the vertical axis. So now we can use justify content center to bring everything to the center horizontally, and we can bring the elements to the center using align item center vertically like this. And then I want to change the font of the text using font family, and I set it to be Courier New. This is my favorite font, but you can use any other fonts you like to use. And let's change the background color to be a linear gradient. Sorry, it should be background, not background color, because this one doesn't work with the linear gradient. So linear gradient, and I want the color to be changed from left to bottom. So I just write down to left, bottom, and the color I want to use is light green to light blue. So now the color starts from light green and divided the screen from left bottom to the top. As you can see, it changes from blue to green. And I want the other things are okay here. So the background would be fine. Next things we want to style is this container. As you can see, the container that is covering everything. The container was here, this div with a class of container inside the HTML file. So we can target this div here inside the CSS by just adding a dot container, because it's just a class. As it is a class, we need to add a dot, and we just write container. The container, we add a border. Let's change the background color so we can see it better. So background color for this one, I just want it to be white. So I just want to use RGBA. I want to add the white color, which is 255, 255, and 255. This is white, but I don't want it to be completely white. I want it to be white, but with 10% transparency. So actually it's white, but you can see the background color. So this is going to make you a glassy design. So this is the trick for making a glassy design. Then we add a box shadow. The box shadow, we want 0 pixels for the x-axis, but 6 pixels for the y-axis. So you see the shadow here, but it is completely black. I want to make it a blurry, 10 pixels blurry. Now you can see it better. Then also, this is the kind of black. I want to make it less black. So I choose a RGBA color. First, we set it to be black by 000. And then I want to add 30% transparency like this. So it's a less shadow effect. Then we add some padding of 30 pixels. So we add some space between the box and the text inside it. And the borders, I want it to be like rounded. So we can add a border radius of, for example, 15 pixels. I want the width of this to be 90%. So 90% is going to help you when you have a big screen. So the space between the container and the wall would be bigger when you have a smaller screen. So if I make it smaller, you see that it always has a space. But now, actually, in the mobile size, you don't see the space. So we can just add a margin here. Margin is a space around the element. So we add, for example, 10 pixels so we have more space, so you can see like that. All right. And for bringing everything to the center, centralize everything, we can use text align center like this. So the next things I want to add here, so I think that's enough for this section for the container. The next things I wanted to style is this head tag. So the h1 tag has a class of heading, so we can target that one by just saying dot heading. We open a set of curly braces, and I just want to change the size of the text, and we set it to be 30 pixels. It's a bit bigger, and let's make the font weight, the thickness of the text to be 700. All right, so the next things we want to style is this quote section. All right, so the quote actually has the class of quote, so we can target that one by just saying dot quote, and I just want the font size to be 30 pixels, then the font weight to be, for example, 600 or maybe 500 to be a bit smaller. So let's see the final version. Okay, so maybe 600 would be better. And then the next thing is the author. The author has the class of author. So we write down author here. Let's add a font size of 25 pixels and add some space around it using margin and 10 pixels for the space, and make the font style to be italic. So like this. All right. So the next things we want to style is this button. So the button has the class of btn. So we can target that here. We just say .btn, and let's set the first font size to be 18 pixels. We want the border radius, which is, if you want to make it rounded, we set it to be 5 pixels. Then when we hover over it, I want to see a pointing hand. So I changed the cursor to be pointer. So when we hover over it, hover over the button, we see a pointing hand. Then let's add some padding. For example, 10 pixels to make it bigger. And we add some margin at the top. So we add a space at the top of the button around 15 pixels. And let's make a background color. The background color, I want to use RGBA too. So, RGBA. And the RGBA, I want it to be white. So 255, 255, and 30% transparency. Also, I want to add a border color with RGBA too. So white color, 255, 255, 255, and 60% transparency. So you can see it's like a modern design. And we can also make it uppercase using text transform uppercase. This is going to make all the letters uppercase. And also I want to make it a little bit longer. So I changed the width to be 300 pixels. The last things I want to do, I want to add some hovering effects. So when we hover over it, I want to see a bit different background color, and the color of the text, I want it to be different. So I target the hovering effect by just saying .btn, clone, hover. And here I just changed the background color to be RGBA again with the white color. But instead of using 30% like the one we use for the normal color, I want to use 60%. So when we hover over it, you see a less transparent color. Then also I want to add some box shadow with 0% in the x-axis, 4 pixels. In the y-axis, 4 pixels for the blurriness, and RGBA color with the black color and 30% transparency. So now while we hover over it, we see a shadow under it. So it's like the button is popping up. And also we can add a transition. So we have a smooth hovering effect. So I just add a transition to all the changes with 300 milliseconds duration and with the ease in and out effect. So this is going to, as you can see, it slowly changes like this. And when we hover over it, I want the color of the text to be green instead of black. So like this. So that was it for the styling of the project. As you can see, we have styled it like the final version. In the next section, we're going to add some functionality. So when we click on the button, we're going to get a random quote from an offer each time, like the one in the final version. And also we want to have this loading effect as well. So we're going to learn how to get this data from the API and also how to make the loading effect using the asynchronous function and the try and catch method. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to work on the JavaScript part and add more functionality to our website. When we click on this button, we want to produce some random quote by an author. So we're going to use an API to get this information. The first things we need to do is to create a JavaScript file. So we go back to Visual Studio Code and we open the Explorer section. And here on the left side, we create a new file by right-click and clicking on New File. And we call it index.js. And first, and before using the JavaScript file, we need to add a link to the index.html by using a script tag. So the script tag usually goes to the end of the body tag because we want all the tags to be loaded first inside the browser and then we apply the JavaScript code. So we add a script tag here. We just write SC and we click on the second auto suggestion, the one with the SRC. And the SRC for this, as both files are located at the same directory, the SRC is just index.js. So now we can use the JavaScript inside our project. We can now close the Explorer section using Ctrl+B and we go to, I just want to show you first which element we need. If you look at the final version, by clicking on the button, we always get a new quote with the author. So three things is important in this project: this code section, also the author, and also we need to add an event listener to this button. So anytime we click on the button, we're going to trigger a function that is going to fetch data from the API, and we're going to replace these two places with the new information each time. So the first things we need to do is to bring this button inside the JavaScript. So we go to the JavaScript file and we create a constant with the name of btn element. We want to get the button here. So this is going to be equal to document because we want to target all the browser. And by using the get element by ID, we can target that button. And the ID of the button, if you look at the HTML file, is btn. So the ID is btn. So we just need to write down btn inside this section. Now we can add the event listener. So we just can say btn element dot add event listener, and the event we want to listen to is click. So anytime someone click, we want to trigger a function, and the function we want to call it, for example, get quote. All right. So this is the function. We need to create it here. So we create a function and we call it get quote. So let's test that add event listener works or not. So we can just console log for now. Clicked. So we open the we open the console using F12 here. So make sure this is a console here. And now, if we click on the button, we're going to see clicked inside the console log. So we just console logging clicked. If you click more, we see the number of click is getting and increasing. All right. So the function and the add event listener is working. The next things we need to do is to, I'll show you the API that we want to work on. So if you go to Google and search for a quotable, we just write down like this, quotable Let me see. Quotable. Let me see if you can find a website. Or if you search maybe quotable.io, because the website's address is quotable.io. So I think this is the GitHub, so you can get that API information. So the first result is a github.com/look/quotable. And if you click on that, this is the GitHub repository, and this is explaining how to use that API. So the public API server, this is the address, api.quotable.io. And as an example, for example, if you want to get a random code, you can see we can just have a /random after that address. So let me show you here. If you, for example, write down api.quotable.io/random, and we press enter, we get a random quote each time. So I'll show you here. So the quote here is this one inside the content, and the author is this person, William Blake. So each time you refresh the page, you should get a random quote. And this API is completely free, and you don't need even an API key for that. And the reason I'm seeing the result like this, I have an extension. So let me show you which extension. I think this is the extension, JSON formatter. So let me show you. This is the website. You can get that. Or if you go to the Google Chrome and search for the JSON formatter, you can install it inside your Chrome. So this is the name of the Google Chrome extension. So here you can get the raw element or the parse font. So, and then each time you refresh, you see a different content and author. So I'd copy this one first. You need to copy this one too, and you come here, and then I just create a constant, and I call it API URL, and we paste it inside a quote here. All right. So we have the URL. Now we need to call this one inside this function, and each time we get a different quote and the author. So we need to use a method called fetch to get that information. So we just can create a constant here, and we call it response. And this response is going to be equal to fetch. And inside the fetch, we just add this API URL. So this is going to give us the response, but we need to convert this response to JSON file. We can use the .then here. This is one method I have taught in my other projects, but the other way is to use to make another constant, for example, data, and this is going to be equal to response dot, and we just convert this one to JSON. So now let me console log data, and we go to our website, and we click on this button. So we got an error. So the response.json. So in order to get this one in this way, we need to add a await. The reason we are adding await is we want to, because we are changing this response for the JSON. So we need to wait until the result comes from this section. So we need to wait for that one. And in order to use the await, you need to change this function to asynchronous. So now when you fetch the data, until the response comes, the code doesn't go to the next line. And when the response comes and this response is filled with the data, with this response, then we can use JSON to convert it. Otherwise, this response would be empty, and we cannot use JSON here. That's why we got an error. So we try again. Now we got a result for the data. This is similar to the one we got inside the browser. So we have an author, and we also have, let me show you more. We have the author, and we also have the content here. So two things we need. It's just this author and this content. And we want to fill this quote with this content and this author with that here. And each time we click, we get a different author, but different content. All right. So we got the result now. So we can just fill this, for example, we can just say the quote content is going to be equal to that data.content. And if you copy this one would be quote author, and this is going to be equal to author. So if you remember, just pay attention, we have author and content, and we put this one inside these variables. Now we want to substitute this quote with the content and this one with the author. So we need to bring these two elements here. So the first element we need to bring is that quote. So the quote element is going to be equal to document. We want to target the browser, and we use get element by ID to get that ID, which is here. This span, it has the ID of quote. So we need to add quote here to target that section. And after this, we simply say this element. So we copy this one. We want to change its inner text to be this quote content. So now if we click on get quote, the quote is replaced by this content, and each time will be a different quote. Let's do the same things for the author. So the author here, this paragraph has the ID of author, so we can bring this element here and we just call it author element, and this is going to be equal to document.get element by ID, and this is equal to that author ID. Now we can change this author. So we just say author element dot inner text is going to be equal to that sign. Remember, we add this symbol plus that quote author. So now we should see the author as well. Okay. So another things I want to do, I want to prevent this one to be filled when there is an error. For example, if you go to the network and make this one offline, for example, we don't have internet, an error happens. When the error happens, so you see that nothing happens here. And if you go to console, you have an error here. All right. So when an error happens, we want to show the error. For example, we say an error happens. So in order to do that, we need to use a method called try and catch. So if you write down try, you see the try catch statement in the auto suggestion. If you click on that one, you see try and catch the error. So now you need to just bring all these things. You just copy all of them and put it here. Now we can catch the error too and console log the error. And also, instead of doing these things, we can just these inner text, instead of saying just nothing, we just say, for example, quote element dot inner text is equal to, for example, we just say an error happened, try again later. I think similar things we can use for the author element. We just say an error happened here. Okay. Now if we still the network, let's see, we are offline here. So if you click again, so let's refresh the page. So let's make it online first time. So now if we click on get quote, we get the quote. And now if we put it on offline, if we click, we get an error. An error happens, try again later. So now we are actually catching the errors, and we understand that there is an error, and we can show it to the user. So the user is not going to click here all the time. So that is for the try and catch. So the other things we need to do is when someone click, before the result comes, for example, for the slow internet, I put the slow 3G, it takes time until the result comes. But the user doesn't know that the website is working or not. So he's going to click here many times, and this is going to fetch many things. So the things we can do is when we are waiting for the response, we just here say updating, and here too, we just say updating. And this, we disable this button so they cannot click on it. And also here, instead of text, we just say loading. So we can do that one because we are using await, the code is not going to go before getting the result. So before the await, we can just add that, for example, loading to our button. We just say btn element dot inner text. We change the text. We just say loading. Let's see it. So now if we click, okay, let's see. btn dot inner text is loading. I didn't put the semicolon here, so that's why it didn't work. So let's try again. Let's refresh the page. Let's first make this one fast. So now it shows loading when we click. Okay. When we click again, it shows loading, but it doesn't come back to the normal text. So we want this to be loading, and also we want the button to be disabled. So we just say btn element dot disabled. First we make it true, and then we copy this one. Oh, sorry, true shouldn't be. We just say true like this, and we copy this one. And after the await, when the response come, we can change this one again back to normal text, which is saying get a quote, and also we want to enable it. So we just set the disabled to false. We have to do this one after an error happened too. So otherwise, when an error happens, the button would stay disabled as well. So we add this to at the end of the error section too. So now we try it. So when we click, it's loading and it's disabled. It's decreased the speed of the internet. So now I cannot click and the click doesn't work. So it's disabled. So when it's finished, it goes back to get a quote. Okay. So we can do the same things for the text as well. So we make the text first. We just say, for example, quote element dot inner text. First, we set it to be, for example, updating. We copy this one, and this is for author as well. So now, if we let's refresh the page. So now we click on get a quote. We see it's updating, and then it's filled. Again, updating, filled. And also, let's bring that one to the normal. When someone comes to the website, it doesn't show any quote at the beginning. We can simply do that one by calling a function just for one time at the end. For example, what's the name of the, this is the name of the function, get quote. We can call this function one time. So when the website comes, anytime we refresh or come to the website, you see a quote, and you can just change it by clicking on this button. So that was it for this project. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. There was a lot of concept. You learned how to use try and catch, and how to fetch an API and wait for the response by adding an await, and also how to make a loading effect by just adding a different text before and after the await for the fetching. So see you in the next project.